Okay, just give it when it goes to 5:32, we are starting. So, just so people that I've got Ken Hill here today. Ken is our IT consultant. We've worked with Ken now probably the best part of 8 or 9 years. I think it is, Ken, isn't it? It was.
I think it might be more than that, you know.
Is it? It's before your beard went grey, anyway.
Well, I had a beard, I think.
But what I did was, I don't know how it happened. We ended up with 3 invitations in my diary, and I think I confused the issue. So I have invited the Lockies to join us, and I can see we've got Bill on the line. I've invited James from Washforce. So we've got a real mix here today. But I think a lot of people might well be on the other call, so we'll just have to crack on. So what Ken was going to do today, or he's going to do today, is kind of go through IT cybersecurity, which isn't a normal topic that we talk about, but it's becoming a lot more of an issue generally for people. Cyber attacks, or malware, you name it. It's kind of one of the key risks, and we have taken more and more precautions to try and stop it. So what Ken's going to do is kind of highlight a few key things, and you may well be aware of them and stuff like that. But one of the key things that I came across when I went to a conference probably the last couple of years is that, I don't know if people are aware of what's called the dark web. Basically, it's the internet that's for dodgy things to happen. And it was amazing how many companies in the room of the conference had all their email passwords being sold online at that moment in time. So, you know, when you talk about things like password protection, you know, be under no illusion at how this is a day-to-day occurrence. People get your email address, they get your password, and then they're selling it on the dark web. And as I said, I was at this conference, and it was a little bit of shame in terms of the number of companies in that conference room at that time that had their passwords for sale on the dark net. So anyway, Ken, you've got a little audience, which is great, and there will be more that join as we go through things. So do you want to, I don't know if you want to share a screen or anything, or you just want to do a general chat?
I have got a very, very basic PowerPoint that I've just thrown together. Let me see if I can bring it up. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I can see you went to all sorts of lengths to get the visuals there.
It's been one of those days. I've literally done this in the last 45 minutes, so excuse any spelling mistakes. But basically, all I want to do is go through the very basics of what to look out for. I could go into depth, but a lot of it is very technical. If any of you want more information about anything in particular or got any particular concerns, then obviously reach out to me afterwards. But what I'll do is I'll go through the obvious things, the things where the attacks normally come from, and we will touch briefly on how you can find out if your email address and password has been compromised a little bit later on. But just the main attack vector for people trying to get into your systems or try to do your business harm is via email. So I'll start off with that to begin with. And what you need to be aware of is obviously an email can be from anyone, and it doesn't need to be from who it says it's from. It's very easy for an attacker to change the display name, to pretend to be who they're not, and potentially it could be from who you think it's from, but their mailbox has been compromised. And we see that an awful lot. So, somebody's mailbox gets compromised, and then all of a sudden it will send out hundreds of emails to all the contacts to try to compromise other mailboxes. Okay, so the things you can do to check an email, first of all, are you sure it's who you think it's from? This is really important. The amount of times that people say, oh, can you release this email from quarantine? It's from somebody I know. But you don't know it's from somebody you know, so you need to check. So have a look at the email address. make sure there's no unusual characters in the email address. One thing that attackers will do is they will register a domain that looks very much like your domain. So, for example, pestforce.co.uk, they might register a domain called pe5tforce.co.uk. And when you glance at it, it will look like Pestforce, but it won't actually be Pestforce. And that way they can get past all the authentication that email needs to get through to get into your inbox rather than your junk folder. So check for that. Remember that display names can be manipulated. And also remember that scammers will sometimes go to great lengths to duplicate what an email would look like from the person that they're sending it as. I've seen customers being targeted by emails where they've taken the time to harvest somebody's corporate signature so that the email just looks that much more genuine and you're more likely to click the links. Another thing to check for is, are they greeting you how you would expect to be greeted? Quite often on a basic email, they might not bother to put your name in, so they might just put a generic greeting in. Sometimes they might know roughly who you are, but use the wrong name or not greet you the way that the sender you're expecting would normally greet you. So use that as a flag to say, I need to pay a little bit more attention to this.
Ken,
yeah.
just for a minute, just go back to the hiding or the masking of email addresses, just to make sure people are aware of that, about that something you see on the face of it may not be the underlying email address. So quite often if you click on the actual email address, it will tell you who it's actually being sent from, and that's normally the giveaway.
Yeah, so if you hover over, I'll show you in a minute how you can use your junk folder in Outlook to actually check where it's from. But if you click on the email or you hover over links, and again I'll get to that in a bit, you'll be able to see where it's really from. So I'm just going to have a look at.
Sorry, Ken, I'll shut up.
That's all right. You've thrown me.
I'll shut up. I'm going to turn myself off.
That's right. I'll show you that in a minute. Where did we get to? Poor grammar is another warning sign. Quite often, the language isn't quite right. There's the punctuation that you'd expect from possibly a big company like Microsoft. They're ones to watch out for. They quite often have spoof emails pretending to be from Microsoft. But if you pay attention, the grammar isn't right. It's not something that would have been agreed by a big corporate company before it's being sent out. So again, that's another flag. Another thing you can do is check the links. If you hover your mouse over any buttons or links in the email, you'll get a little pop-up in the bottom left-hand corner that'll actually show you where the links go to. And what you need to do is pay a little bit of attention to whether or not the two match up. So you can see in this example here, the link in the email is www.quince.com, but if you hover over it, you're getting a .au website that will take you to. That's a big red flag, that one. So always, when you're clicking on links in emails, even if you think you know the sender, just spend a second just checking that if you hover over it, it's from who you think it is. And again, I'll show you in a minute that your junk folder is your friend for this. Another note is telling you all these things to look out for, but also be aware that they don't always have obvious warning signs. So if somebody's mailbox has been compromised, you might get a very genuine email from them asking you to click this link to view a document. If you click that link, it will look like a genuine web page, but it will ask you to put your credentials in. Your credentials won't work, so it'll ask you to put more credentials in. As soon as you receive something you're not expecting, always expect the worst. Check. If if your gut says there's something wrong here, check with the sender. Phone them if you know their phone number. Don't reply to the email, because if their mailbox has been compromised, you'll be having a conversation with a hacker rather than the person you think you're having a conversation with. So try to phone them with a number that you've already got or one that you get from their website. And most of this is about, like I say, trust your gut, use common sense, and don't get rushed into things. An attacker will quite often try to rush you by saying, if you don't click here within the next couple of minutes, your account's going to be disabled, or click here now to get these tickets. If there is an urgent call to action, that's another warning sign. So be really, really careful with those. Which brings us on to the junk and spam folders. It's very easy to get frustrated when emails always end up in your junk folder. But the computer system can actually see more about where the email is from than you can at first glance. So when a sender sends an email, there's a number of things that can be set up in the background that say, us as PestForce, when we send an email, it must come from one of these servers. And if it doesn't, then it's more likely to end up in your spam folder. So if an attacker tries to send an email from PestForce and it comes from the wrong place, that's going to flag up for the receiving server that there's something wrong about this email. So if an email, even if it's from somebody you know, ends up in your junk folder or gets quarantined, treat it with real caution. Okay, and then we can get on to having a look at how you can use your junk folder to check an email. So if you just drag and drop an email into your junk folder in Outlook on Windows, it will show you, I don't know if you can actually see all the links on here, but it will strip out all the formatting and it will show you where all the links really go. Okay, so you can see on this one that you might not be able to see, hopefully you can see that you can see the real email address at the top, where it's actually from, so that won't be hidden. So you can check the spelling, look for an email address that's slightly different from the one you're expecting, because that's a bad sign. Have a look at all the links. You can see in this one, this link hit the link halfway down, just above where it says Hill Data Systems. That's actually got a series of numbers in it rather than a domain name. So to me, that's a red flag, because if I click on there, I've got no idea where I'm going. So there's things you can check.
So this, Ken, is this you say if you drag an email into your junk folder, this is what happens?
This is what happens, and it also stops any trackers. So sometimes marketing and spammers will put an image in the email that they will track if you open it. So if you view the email, it will know that you viewed it. If you use your junk folder, they won't know, because nothing in there will trigger a call back to wherever the email came from. So the junk folder.
Okay, so this is what you're saying is, so you receive something in your inbox genuinely,
yep,
and you drag it into junk without opening it.
Yep.
It kind of disables a lot of the issues.
That's right.
Okay, I never knew that.
Yeah, okay. And as you can see there, it exposes all the links as well, so you can see exactly where every link is going. So you can have a look. So if you receive an email from Hill Data Systems, for example, you'd expect all the links to go to Hill Data Systems /something. And if they don't, then you can treat those links with a little bit more caution, unless it's somewhere like I might quite often link to Microsoft, for example. Okay, does that make sense so far? I'm brushing through that a little bit.
I just tried it on an email that was in my inbox, but I just seemed to, just the same emails went into my junk mail. Didn't break it down. It was an email I hadn't opened up previously.
Yeah, no, it should just. Has that email got any links in it or anything?
Yeah.
So the link should be expanded out.
but it'll only expand out if it needs to expand out, won't it? Or
Yeah,
were you saying?
yeah. So where the where somebody puts a link and hides it behind text to make it look neater. So where it says click this link and this link is a link to a website, then that would get expanded out so you can see the whole link.
I'll send you a dodgy email, Paul. You can have a look at that.
Well, another one.
More to add. All right. Just lost my mouse. I do apologize. Where are we at? So that's emails very quickly. Next thing that's worth talking about is cookies. Cookies are great. A lot of you probably already know this. A cookie is like a little text file that a website will leave on your computer so that it remembers you. It will remember your settings. It will, they can be used to keep you signed in. They're used to target adverts based on what they know about you. And they'll also track, some of them will track you around the internet, and they're the ones you've probably heard about, tracking cookies. So they can be good, they can be bad, but they're actually quite a worry these days. And we'll get onto that in a minute. So my recommendation for cookies, and what I tend to do, is a lot of people get frustrated by the pop-ups. When you go to a website, it says, we use cookies, it's part of the EU directive. Do you accept them? I would always recommend that you don't click accept all. I know that's the easy option, and the button will move around to make you accidentally click the right one. But if you only accept the basic cookies, the only thing you're losing is perhaps some memory of what you how you like that website set up. And what you'll be losing is that website tracking you around the internet, and you'll be getting a few less targeted advertising cookies. Okay, but one thing to bear in mind is that there's a certain type of cookie called a session token, and this is what keeps you signed into a website. So where you click that button that says, oh, remember me on this site, or keep me signed in for 14 days, or whatever, that leaves a little file on your computer. And that little file on your computer has your login details, essentially. So if your accounting software, for example, then you use Xero, you can tell it to keep you signed in for 14 days, whatever. If you do that, you get this cookie on your computer, which is fine. It's nice and convenient. When you go back in, you don't have to put your password in again. However, there is a very common attack now where attackers will harvest all your cookies off your computer, load them up onto their computer, fire up your websites, and they're signed in automatically without having to worry about passwords or multi-factor authentication. Because they've got this session token, they've got access to your accounts. There was actually very recently, in the last few weeks, a very big tech blogger on YouTube had all his YouTube accounts compromised because somebody was left logged in to all the sites and clicked on a malicious link in an email, which installed some software which grabbed all their session tokens, and then these attackers could just get into all their accounts. They deleted all their YouTube videos, and it was a complete disaster. So the moral of this story is they're very convenient. It's very convenient to be always logged in, but it is an increasing security risk. So it's just something to bear in mind. More convenience is quite often less security.
Yeah, and from our point of view, Ken, from a marketeer's point of view, this is something we've battled against. So while it is absolutely from a security point of view, these are the right things to do, but because they're the right things to do, from an advertiser and a marketing perspective, this is bad news because we can't use the tools that we used to use So we can't track, for example, the exact number of people that visit our website anymore because people don't allow the cookies, which means we can't record the session. So it's definitely the right thing to follow, but because it's the right thing to follow, it doesn't mean it's good news for us. But take the right course, the right road of caution there.
Yeah, I mean the main takeaway from this is the try not to click on the keep me signed in button. It's a pain to have.
Sorry, Kim, what we're using sites like LastPass.
Right. Password managers as a whole, thanks for the smile, Sean. Password managers as a whole are good, okay, in that they will enable you to easily generate unique passwords for every site and give you a button to sign in. So if you're using a password manager, I would argue that there's no need to click the checkbox that says always keep me signed in, okay, because you've got a certain amount of security there. LastPass as a solution is not one I would recommend anymore. I used to, but they were compromised at the end of last year. And that exposed an awful lot of failings in their security systems. So LastPass is generally considered by the security community to be a compromised solution and one to avoid. There are others out there. The problem, they're all targets, but it's all a case of it is a balance of convenience and security and everything. Security experts agree that using a password manager is better than not using one, even given the risks of a password manager being a big target for the hackers. And if you want offline, I can go through exactly what happened to LastPass. It was a very targeted, very long-term attack, and the attackers went to extreme lengths to get what they got. But essentially what they got was a backup of every single user's password vaults and the means to view them all without multi-factor authentication and stuff. So I would always recommend using a password manager, having said that. And it is key to make sure that every password you use is unique for every website. Okay. And that is very much because of what's on the next slide, but also what Sean was talking about earlier. If one set of credentials gets compromised of yours, so your email address and your usual password, then an attacker who pays for this this password will then use that against all the big services and possibly some smaller ones and see what they can get into. So it's critical to use a password manager, but obviously even with those, don't leave yourself logged in. Okay. So which brings us nicely onto passwords and multi-factor authentication. So always use password manager if you can, just to get you the unique passwords for every site. You can come up with a way of, and I've done it in the past, you can come up with a formula for yourself for creating a unique password for every site, but that tends to end up using part of the site name, and it becomes a formula that somebody, if they know enough of your passwords, can work it out. So password manager, which will generate secure passwords for you and save them and automatically fill them in, is a great thing. There's a website on the screen there, Have I Been Pwned, which is the big one that everybody uses. You can put your email address in there and it will tell you how many compromises it's aware of. Everybody's typing.
You can see Paul straight away.
Yeah, I usually just keep to Pestforce 1, Pestforce 2, Pestforce 3. So
oh, you're secure. You're secure then. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm confusing them that way. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not stupid, you know.
So yeah, I'd recommend having a quick look at that. that website, putting your email address in, see how many compromises it's aware you've been in. Be aware that no site like this is a full list of everything that's been compromised. One thing to bear in mind is these scammers, they're not individuals, they're big business now. So they're after the money. They will invest lots of money in all sorts of scams, and some people just make their money by harvesting email addresses and passwords. Some people will then use that to try to extract money out of you however they can. But yeah, that's a good site to go to find out exactly why you might want to have a unique password for every single site.
16, fantastic.
Okay, that'll keep you busy.
That's just on the Pest Force one, not my personal. No, I'm joking. That's my personal one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other thing, and people see this as another inconvenience, is multi-factor authentication. So that's where you have an app on your phone normally these days that generates a code that you have to type in after your password. And the reason you want to do that is because that code can only be generated on your phone. So it's the extra factor of authentication is, you know your username, you know your password, fair enough, but you might be a scammer. Do you have your phone with you? And if you've got your phone with you, then it's more likely, unless you're really unlucky, that you are who you say you are. Okay. There are other ways, more secure ways than multi-factor authentication with an app. You can use SMS and text, but these are considered less secure. So if you can use a multi-factor authentication app to generate the codes, that's the best way to do it. And as said before, try not to stay signed into websites, because more convenience usually means less security.
Ken,
Okay.
can you recommend any multi-factor authentication apps? What are the two or three main ones that people use?
Right, the one that most people will know is Google Authenticator. The one that I would recommend is Authy, AUTHY. And the reason I recommend that is because you can actually back up all your codes using that one. Now, the downside to that is you're backing it up to the cloud. So that's something else that you need to keep secure. Another one you can...
Microsoft.
Microsoft Authenticator is another good one. You can use that in the same way, same places you can use Google Authenticator. And it's also one that's moving towards one that's set up for passwordless authentication, which is the next big thing in security. Because passwords are so insecure, everybody's trying to move away from them, but that's a whole other topic. And there's ways that people are looking at to get you authenticated without having to need your password and everything. And one of the ways you can do that is with a security key like this one. So that's a physical key that you put into your computer. This one also does NFC. Can't see that. Can you not see it?
You need to.
Is it USB type thing? Is it?
Yeah. That's got a USB connector. It's also got NFC, so you can use it on your phone. They come in all sorts of formats, but that's a physical key that has to be connected to your device when you sign in. So you can use a device like that to sign into your Office 365 account, to sign into your password manager. Password manager is a very good place to use that, because nobody then can get into your password manager without having that physical key as well. But if you do look into that, I'd strongly recommend that you get a minimum of 2, because if you lose one key, then you're locked out of everything. But again, I can discuss that in more detail offline if you like. Okay.
Can we claim against these companies that have had their server hacked?
Sorry?
Can we claim against these companies?
What, like LastPass?
Well, yeah, I mean, Twitter, for God's sake. Somebody's scraped the data off Twitter.
I'm not aware of anybody that has, but you can always give it a go. Everyone likes a good litigation, don't they?
Yeah.
Give it a go. Right. The next thing about keeping safe is one of my pet hates. One of the things I hate is adverts that say search for this to find out more details. The reason I don't like searching for things, and when I ask people to go to my website, they will quite often put my web address in the search bar. Okay, and what that does is it puts money in Google's pocket, or Bing's pocket, or whoever's pocket. But also it means it comes up with a list of results, and the ones at the top are the ones that people have paid more for. So potentially those links could actually be hijacked by somebody else. So unless you're paying attention, you could actually end up, if you search for something rather than typing the address in the address bar, you could end up somewhere you're not expecting. It might look the same, but it might be somewhere else. So basically, this is a recommendation: where possible, always type the address in the address bar, or use your bookmarks rather than searching for everything every single time.
Can you just explain it a bit, just to be clear about what you say, what you mean there?
Right. So as a company, you pay for pay-per-click, don't you? You go for certain keywords, and then you appear high in the rankings of Google on those terms. And when people click on them, you pay them a little bit of money just to be displayed prominently. So what somebody could do, and what people do is if you search for a big company, like an antivirus company or Microsoft or whatever, other people will be vying for those
that keyword,
that top spot. And it has happened in the past where the search results have been hijacked to a certain extent, and somebody with a very similar looking domain name will appear top of the list, and people will click on it and end up somewhere completely different to where they were expecting.
Yeah, okay.
Quite often that will lead you to all the lovely little pop-ups that will appear, and you click on them to get rid of them, and then you accidentally click on something that installs something on your computer. So that's just something to be aware of when you're searching. Always just double check what you're clicking on before you click on it.
Yeah.
Okay, just in case.
Yeah, got you.
Okay, and finally, just a few additional security tips, just for those of you that want to take it a little bit further. One of the main things that you really should be doing is not logging into your computer with an account that's got admin access. So if when you try to install some software, you just have to click yes, you've got admin access. Okay, the reason you want to do this or not do this is it makes it very difficult for viruses and malware to get installed in your computer if it has to rely on you to type in a different password to get it installed. Okay, what a lot of scammers will do is they will rely on you getting fed up with all the pop-ups that come up in day-to-day life, and they will be relying on you clicking the yes just to get rid of something that's popping up. So if you have to go through an extra step to install software, that's giving you a little bit of extra protection. It's giving you that pause for thought to think, was I really expecting something to be installed at this point? So that's one thing. Always make sure your operating system and applications are up to date. Most of you should know this. It's very important because every bit of software has got problems with it. Problems get discovered. That gives attackers a way into your computer potentially. And also do this even if you've got a Mac. There's a misplaced confidence in Mac users that Macs never get hacked. And this all goes back to the fact that scammers are businesses. If you're a business and you want to target the largest number of customers, if you like, you'll go for the biggest market. And the biggest market has always been Windows, but Macs are becoming more popular. So they're a better target for scammers and hackers. So more and more viruses are being targeted at Macs now. So even on a Mac, make sure your apps and your operating system are up to date as far as possible. Use antivirus even if it's the built-in antivirus, but always make sure it's up to date. And don't be rushed into making bad decisions. If something is making you want to click on something really quickly, just pause and think about it, because that is an attacker's best friend. Try persuading you to do something quickly because it's urgent. That's when you make the mistake, and that's when you miss something. Okay. I think I might have run over a little bit there, Sean, but I think that's the end of my slide deck.
Yeah, no, that's all right. There is also this thing about potentially what's the word, emails that threaten to cut you off because they it's like a ransom email. If you do not do this, I know James has had this problem. I've got pictures of you doing something you don't want to have done, and you need to pay me $500 to not expose it. It's all bullshit. It's the same thing all the time. It's, as Ken says, if you stop and think for a minute, does this make sense? No, it doesn't. But they will use threatening language, and it does. Sometimes it can just catch you at the wrong time and you make the wrong decision. But that's kind of always the case. And I think the thing I'm always concerned about is when it says we want to, it looks like it's come from Microsoft or something. It says we want to double check your credentials. No company in the world of any reputation wants to check your credentials ever. And it's the same with I think we're all used to telephone scammers now, but email is kind of the new way they do it. Or say the new way, they've been doing it for years.
Yeah. But I'm always happy to review an email if you're concerned about it and you think, oh, it could be genuine. The first thing I would always recommend is, if you're concerned about it, be concerned about it. You probably don't even need to check with anybody else. If you've got concerns, don't click on it. If you think it might be genuine, try to get hold of the sender. Use a method that you already have. So don't use any phone numbers or links or reply to the email, but go to their website, try to speak to the individual that sent the email. If you're still not sure, feel free to run it past me. I'm more than happy to take a look, or run it past a colleague. Just second opinion quite often will help. But if it is genuine and you treat it as potential phishing, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say, did you receive that email? Nothing else is going to happen. But if you treat it as legitimate and it's not, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to get hacked, you're going to get your mailbox compromised or worse. So it's worth just taking that time and always just give it that thought.
Very good. Thanks, Ken. Right, so just open up. If there's any questions, if anyone wants to put anything in the chat box or open their mic, and I'm just having a look. Is there anything here? Oh no, that's the chat from last week, so that's fine. Anyone got any questions at all? Anyone at all got any questions? No, it doesn't look like it. Paul's worrying about the 16 compromises he's found online. That's fine. Look,
no, I'm just glad those ransom emails aren't true.
Right, look, guys. I hope you found it useful. I've learned a little bit. Nathan, you got a question?
No, Paul, you may say about the ransom emails. I did have a good friend of ours received a ransom email stating that, oh, I've got pictures of you doing dirty things. I'm going to release them to all your friends and everything like that through your Facebook contacts and Instagram. He ignored it, and then, funnily enough, everyone did receive the dirty pictures.
They did.
Oh, yeah, shame. All of us.
Shame, but there you go.
What he needs to do is invest in a webcam slider. And just make sure that's on when he's doing anything he doesn't want recorded.
I'll let him know that.
Yeah. No, great stuff. Now look, guys. I mean, look, what we're seeing is there's definitely these risks are there. We have an element of insurance in place centrally. Those costs are going up. There's more the banks, you probably notice on banks now being much more critical about, have you checked this, have you checked that? And in the past, a lot of IT crime and IT scams were kind of insured and you get your money back. And what I'm seeing now is people kind of asking questions that is almost leading to the thing of, well, we asked you these questions, you didn't follow it, we're not going to stand up to the plate. And I just think we just need to be aware of it. And, you know, I appreciate everybody's time this evening just to listen. I've learned a little bit. I do use a password control software. It's a pain in the ass, but I use it. And I use more two-factor authentication. Again, it's a pain in the ass, but you know, I don't want anything to happen. So look, just hopefully there's a bit of learning for everybody today. So if there's unless there's another question, we will wrap it up unless anyone's got anything else they want to talk about or ask. So yeah, the hot oh no, she wasn't looking for you, I'm afraid, the hot Ukrainian woman.
It was the wrong number.
She didn't love you. She didn't love you. Right, anyone else?
Okay.
No, Paul, no, Bill, James, Nathan. God, there's loads of people on the call. So, all right, guys, look, no one's saying anything, so I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for joining us, and nice to have a nice mixture. We've got every single member of the brand here. We've got James on from Washforce. We've got some guys from Lockforce, and we got some guys from Pestforce. So, Ken, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
If the guys need to get hold of you for anything, what's your email address?
Email me at ken@hilldatasystems.co.uk, or you can phone me on 01722 244 8899. But I'm sure Sean can share that contact detail with you.
I certainly can.
So if you've got any follow-up questions after this, or you just want any advice, just give me a call.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ken. Thanks everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.